jobs report was just recently released for the month of November. This is one of the most important pieces of data we get every month, as it really shows the health of the economy and businesses, and it's one of the main things the Fed looks at. It's one of their mandates and helps to dictate their monetary policy, aka hiking rates. I'm here to tell you, when you look past the headlines and you look at the internals, this was truly a weak report. You just have to know how to dissect the data. Stay to the end of this show and stick around, and you will be an expert in breaking this down every single month. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Dan Habib Show. I'm your host, Dan Habib. A couple quick reminders before we get into the content. Please join us at MBSHighway.com if you're looking for the best mortgage and real estate insights every single day. And if you want an edge in investing in crypto and you want to be a more educated crypto investor, check us out at CryptoCharged.com. If you sign up and use the code Habib, it will give you 40% off. And please, one more reminder, like and subscribe below to support the channel. But let's jump into it, team, because we just got the jobs report just this past week for the month of November. Now, this usually comes out the first Friday of every month, and it's one of the most important reports that has the biggest potential market impact. It's also something that the Fed is looking at very closely. The Fed has two mandates: stable prices, aka inflation, around their 2% target, and maximum employment. And the Fed wants to try to achieve both goals, keep employment high and inflation low. But the latest data we just saw, well, it was a blockbuster report, or at least it seemed on the headline. It showed 263,000 job creations for the month of November. Meanwhile, the market was anticipating 200,000. Now, the initial reaction in a normal market would be that stocks would like it because it shows the economy is growing, businesses are hiring, and bonds would normally not like it. However, both the stock and bond markets sold off sharply after what appeared to be a beat. Now, why would this happen? Because the market is really fixated on what the Fed is going to be doing. And if the Fed sees jobs are still being created that could be inflationary, then the markets are going to sell off because it means the Fed still has more work to do. But I believe this was a weak jobs report, and I'm going to show you why. You have to oftentimes look past just the headlines. The media does not know what they're talking about. The media tries to catch eyeballs. The media doesn't look under the hood at the true internals. And let me tell you, they were weak. So first of all, Gavin, if you pull up my slide here. So the first thing that's important to note is that within the jobs report, there's actually two different surveys. There is the business survey, and then there's the household survey. And you get different components that are talked about in the media from each, although they won't tell you this. Now, within the business survey, that is where you get your headline job creation number. That's where we got the 263,000 jobs created in November. This survey, the way they compile the data, is actually by looking at people who were on payrolls during the sample week of the 12th. And it just so happens that during the sample week of the 12th, it fell on a Saturday. Well, that means that when most people get paid, when do they get paid? On the 15th. So this could, and of course they could be getting paid at the first of the month or at the end of the month, and typically the 15th. So this could certainly skew the numbers. If there was layoffs in that period of time, it may not have been counted because they weren't able to properly include the 15th of the month payroll. But additionally, the way they factor in how many jobs are created is something called the birth-death ratio. So what they do is they try to estimate how many new jobs are created. I should say how many new businesses were created and how many jobs that would account for, and how many businesses died, birth-death ratio, and how many job losses that would account for. Well, this can greatly skew the numbers based on their modeling. If you take a look at the previous report for October, this added almost 500,000 jobs. Otherwise, you would have seen a negative number in October. Well, in November, it added 110,000 jobs. I believe that's way overstated. I don't see an economy right now where you're seeing all kinds of businesses that are starting brand new and creating all kinds of jobs. We're actually seeing quite the opposite. If you look at the Challenger Gray job cut report, that's been moving much higher. You take a look at the tech sector especially, they're cutting record numbers of jobs in a month and to this point in a year. You're also seeing initial jobless claims, people filing for unemployment benefits for the first time, move higher. But then even more interesting, continuing claims. Those continuing to receive benefits after their initial claim, that's added well over 200,000 to that figure over just the last 7 weeks. This shows you that when people get laid off, they're having a hard time finding new work, and this is causing people to continue to receive those benefits. So this report didn't make sense to me when we looked at this, and I believe a big portion of it is because you're seeing a way overstating of businesses created and how many jobs that creates. This will probably result in some big revisions in future months to come. But also, if you take a look at hours worked, that was down by 0.3%. It might not sound like that much, but that's on average. What it looks like to me is this. Businesses, instead of potentially firing workers, because it's hard to find good workers out there, they cut their hours. But think about this. If you were to extrapolate that 0.3% across all of these workers out there on average, did you know that that would equate to 380,000 jobs that would have been lost? And lastly, there was 165,000 jobs that were created from multiple job holders. That doesn't mean that you're seeing, 165,000 new people working. It means the same people are working, but in order to make ends meet, they have to get multiple jobs. If you were to add all of these things up, you would have actually seen not 263,000 job creations, you would have seen almost 400,000 job losses in that headline jobs number that we get from the business survey. But then the unemployment rate comes from the household survey. That is not done by modeling. It's actually done by calling 60,000 households. Each household accounts for a few thousand people when you look at the labor force. But with statistics, when you get to a certain number, the numbers don't change that much. So it is an ample sample size. Well, this did not show 263,000 job creations. It removed some of the distortions that we see in that business survey. But what it showed is 138,000 job losses. Pretty stark difference between those two reports. I think this is a better indication of what really happened in the job market. But you might be asking yourself, well, Dan, how come the unemployment rate remained at a very low 3.7%? And the answer is that you had a greater amount of people leave the labor force. This caused the labor force participation rate to drop to one of the lowest levels that we've seen in a very long time. But essentially, while you saw the number of unemployed increase, the numerator there, you saw the denominator go down because you saw 186,000 people leave the labor force. And it's for the wrong reasons, for weak reasons, that you saw the unemployment rate stay unchanged. If it wasn't for that, you would have seen that move up. I believe you're going to see the unemployment rate reach 4% and have a 4 handle on it in the not too distant future. I think that's going to apply some pressure to the Fed. I also believe that inflation has not only rolled over, but I think we're going to see inflation and in turn mortgage rates continue to move lower one piece at a time. It's not all going to happen in one shot, but one inflation report at a time. I believe you're going to see mortgage rates head down towards 5% in the first half of next year. Now, after you saw the markets digest this, it did what I expected. They started to actually recover all of their losses, both stocks and bonds, and actually ended the day slightly higher. So team, when you see this jobs report come out every single month, remember, you have to look past the headline. You can go to the BLS.gov, you can get the PDF of the report, and you can look at the different segments where jobs are created. But it's most important to look at the headline establishment survey, okay, or also called the business survey, and see the job creation component, but also look for some of these idiosyncrasies that can skew the numbers. But then it's also important to look at the household survey where the unemployment rate comes from and look to see the job creation component there as well as the difference in the labor force. Hope you enjoyed today's call here and breakdown of the jobs report. And until next time.